prayer is for the weak. Prayer is nothing but a sugar cube, a placebo for the simple-minded, for the spiritually weak. Prayer is useless. Prayer is pointless. Ever hear things like that before? People say all kinds of things about why they think prayer is either pointless or powerless. But you know what? People can say all they want, but Christians believe what God says. And this is what God has to say about prayer in James chapter 5. Here's what it says: "The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective." Now, this doesn't mean that if you're a really, really good person and do really good things, then whatever you want in prayer, you get that all the time. No, what this means is that a righteous person, a believer, who's covered with the forgiveness of Jesus, that person has prayers that are powerful and effective. In other words, a believer's prayers work. If you read further in this chapter of James chapter 5, it goes on to give the example of Elijah. Elijah was a person in the first part of the Bible, in the Old Testament, a prophet. And yet it says here in James that Elijah was a human being just like the rest of us, and yet his prayers were powerful. One time Elijah prayed, and it stopped raining for 3.5 years. And then at the end of that time, he prayed again, and God made it to rain. Now that's powerful and effective. This always makes me think about another real-life story from my own life, from my own ministry, my second year as a pastor. We had this annual kids carnival event that we ran, bounce houses, face painting, that kind of stuff, a big outreach event. Well, in our first year, we had maybe about 200 people come. It was pretty good, but we were praying hard for God's blessings. The problem is, as we looked at the forecast, it was supposed to rain that day in Florida. Sure enough, I woke up that morning and there were clouds everywhere. It looked gloomy. It said it was going to rain. And so I prayed and I prayed and I prayed that day, "Lord, this is an easy thing for you. You've done it before. Lord, you did it for Elijah. This is an event for you and for your kingdom and to reach out to people with the good news of Jesus. Lord, make it not rain today, please, but your will be done." Well, sure enough, that day, not only did it not rain, but it was completely sunny all day long. And on top of that, we smashed the previous year's blessings with almost 800 people in attendance that day. Now, some might say we got lucky with the weather. Others might say, well, you had pretty good advertising. But I would say what God says. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective, and there were lots of believers praying for that event. This story today of prayer and the power of prayer and how God works in prayer is so important. God always answers our prayers powerfully. Not always how we want or how we think, but he always answers in love and according to his will. So come back this week as we talk about the power of prayer and see God's work in our lives.